Hello, everyone. So let's start the session. I hope everybody is able to see my screen. Can you just give me a chat heads up if you are able to see the presentation? Thank you. Let's get started. So my name is Raghav, and I will be solving Popcorn, which is a hack the box retired machine. The machine is based on Linux, and the difficulty is medium. But I will make sure everybody gets something out of this session today. So we basically, every time we start off on Hack the Box, we get a IP. So what to do with IP address? We can use Nmap. Nmap is basically a network mapper, which helps us to find basically live host on network. So let's fire Nmap and we will discuss along with that. So here is the box name you can see, and here is the IP address. So we can just copy this IP address and open our terminal, and we can just first connect to the VPN basically. So first step is always to connect to the Hack the Box VPN so we can access the machines. To access the VPN file, we can go over here to the lab section and we can click on access, and then we can download our VPN file. So after connecting to the VPN file, we can proceed to Nmap. So if we type Nmap, and as you can see, this is the IP address of the box. So we start off with the service version. So small s and capital V is to mention the version. So as this Nmap goes on, we will discuss a little bit about what is Nmap and how it works. So basically, Nmap uses TCP three-way handshake. It is an interaction between the client and server. So the server is basically the box over here, and we are the client. How the TCP general communication works is we send a synchronized packet, which is basically hello, and then the server responds to it with acknowledgement along with synchronizing. So it says it's open and you can start having a conversation. We send back acknowledgement. But what Nmap does by default is Nmap uses this stealth scan technique. It is the default scanning. So what we do generally when we are pressing this command over here, so Nmap sends a synchronous packet and it gets back acknowledgement, but it sends a reset package. It says them to no, forget it. We don't want to proceed with the talking to you, basically. And in general TCP, we say let's start a conversation. So this is basically the default scan, and it is good. As you can see, this will be quieter because we are not acknowledging and starting a communication. We just wanted to know if the port is open or not, and we sent a reset flag. Also, you can see that if it gets a sync and acknowledgement packet back, then Nmap knows that there is a service running there. It doesn't get a response. It assumes the port is closed. There is also a way to proceed with the TCP three-way handshake, which is connect scan, but obviously it will make more noise as we makes a full connection with the server. But that is not needed because our goal is to only know what are the ports open on that machine. So this scan is not only noisy, but also puts a more load on the machines being scanned and the network also. So let's proceed and see if the output is there. Yeah, as you can see, Nmap has finished working, and we can see there are two ports open, 22 and 80. So let's discuss a little bit about the output of Nmap. So our goal is to find out what ports are open. So, okay, we can see that 22 and 80 is open, but what's next? So what services are running on these ports? So services basically are SSH. This is by default for a 22 port number, SSH, and for by default 80, it is HTTP. And then once we identify what are the services running on these ports, our next goal is to find out what's the version of that service running. So we can see the version is OpenSSH 5.1, and for HTTP, it's Apache, which is a web server running. So probably Apache is lets us host websites. So basically, this port will allow us to basically connect to a website, and then we can follow with enumeration. But before that, we can also use this one more option, which is SC. So small s is to mention script, and the capital C is to script scan. Basically, this will use all the by default scripts Nmap has and try to enumerate more about these services. So let's hit enter and let's see what's the output over there. Generally, in boxes which are a lot easier, we can directly search for this version on Google and find a exploit, but probably that won't be the case over here. But we can still try. If we can copy this and head over to Google. We can type the Apache and search for vulnerabilities. So see, every version has some or the other vulnerability, but we need to identify, is it really useful to us? Will it help us to do anything better? So definitely we can see there's few vulnerabilities, but nothing great, which can help us actually, because by only knowing this service version, we will not be able to do a lot. So as you can see, Nmap script scan basically returned us a little more information. So now we know the HTTP title. It enumerated that the site doesn't have a title, and we can also see the header. So okay, let's open the website and see what's in there. So okay, we can see it's showing it works, and this is the default web page for this server, and the web service is running, but no content has been added yet. Let's move on to the PPT. So once we did the Nmap, we get to know what services are running. So next part is basically to enumerate those services which are opened. So HTTP service was opened, and the most famous way to enumerate a HTTP service is to brute force for possible directories. So there are many ways to brute force for directories, and the most common way is to use a directory brute forcer. We can use the by default derb. This is by default on Kali, but this is a little bit slow because it only uses one request per second. But if we use this GoBuster, it is typically more faster, and it helps us to enumerate the directories in a little less time, you can say. So the syntax is GoBuster. We are brute forcing for directories. We are giving the URL. Now we need to give a word list. So let's go with the most common word list, USR share. And the advantage of GoBuster is we can specify threads. So threads are basically every second there will be 42 requests being sent to the server. Whereas if we use the by default derb, only one request will be sent. So you can see the difference. Over here, we are sending 42 per second, and over there, we are only sending one. So let's hit enter. And as you can see, it has started brute forcing for directories. The general enumeration we can do by the time this all is we are brute forcing for directory is we can check if robots.txt exists. So robots.txt doesn't exist. Basically, robot.txt is a file which tells us directories. It is not meant to be used like that, but people use this robots.txt to tell the search engines what all crawlers are allowed to brute visit a website, to show a Google crawler basically first goes to this file, and then it gets to know which websites are allowed to be visited and which are not. So another thing we can do is we can go to view selection source, and we can view for source code, but on this side there is no source code at all. So this is the same thing. So I think we need to wait. Okay, the output came by. So index.html means the default page where we are landing. So even if I type over here index.html, it still means the same page will open up, because index means the base page. So these you can 403, which means we will not be able to access it. We are looking for 200s or 301s, because 301 means redirection and 200 means success. These are the HTTP status codes, and these are very important. So we can see two more, and the more interesting ones are test and torrent. So let's visit the test one first, and then we will visit the torrent one. So once we go over here, we will make a duplicate tab. We type test. So we got something. So what it is basically, this tells us that we can see PHP is being hosted on the Apache server, and we can even see this, what is the system it is being run on. It is a Linux system, and the version is 2.6.31. We move a little bit more, and it's a huge output. Basically, what we are interested, whenever you come across this again, we are interested for a few things, which are like file upload. So as you can see, if you search for file uploads, we can see, okay, so on this server, and PHP is being hosted, and we will be able to upload files, but we still don't know where exactly. So I think there is nothing much more in this. This is highly important system, as we will later on see why this was important, and that PHP file upload. So let's move on to another part, which was torrent. Okay, so we can see like this is a torrent hoster. I hope everybody knows what a torrent is. Basically, it is a peer-to-peer file sharing system. So probably this is a torrent website where we can we can see, like, we can browse what all torrents are there. Okay, we can see like there is a billboard.png torrent which is available, and we can also see like there is a home directory which is telling us like what all torrent clients are available. There's uTorrent, there is BitTornado, and we can also see upload, which is very interesting to us because we might be able to upload something malicious to it and get reverse shell, but it pops up a login page to us. So we don't have the credentials as of now, and we can see a sign up option. So it's better to go ahead and sign up. So to sign up, we need to give, and I will just fill it out. Test, test, test. So it is showing like you have successfully registered to the torrent hoster, and the password and username is test and test. So, and it is showing to continue using the system, please log in. So we will definitely click on login. We can provide our credentials, which is test and test. Okay, so we can see like we are basically inside the system now. And if we click on upload, so we can upload files over here. And probably like once we upload the files, they will appear in the browser tab. So generally, when we see this option to upload files, what we will do is we will try to upload a malicious reverse shell directly and try to see if the browser allows us to get a reverse shell. But so service enumeration we are doing currently, and we did the directory brute forcing and exploiting application functionality. So basically, what I meant to say over here is sometimes we just need to enumerate the website and get to know how it works. And to get to know how it works, we can use another tool, which I will show you. But the point over here is we need to enumerate ourselves and understand what the application is actually doing before exploiting it. So we can see like there is a tool, Burp Suite, which we will use in a minute. What is Burp Suite? It basically allows us to intercept the all responses and requests between the browser and the target application. So whenever we are hitting browse, there is a request going to the server, and the server is sending back us this page. So, but we are not able to see what request is actually being sent because we are only able to see the GUI version. But we also need to know what is actually being sent and what is actually being coming back. So this is where we can use Burp Suite. And there are two type of request methods. Post is usually to send data to the server, basically create or update a resource, and get is used to request data from a specified URL. So when we are click on browse, we are basically using get because as you can see, we can see the request is being in the seen in the URL. But if it is a post request, basically once we were logging in, we won't be able to see the credentials in the URL because it was a post request. So let's move on and try to upload a file. So we will try to upload a file over here. And first I will just try to see if I can upload a picture. I just want to see, like, I will test out the functionality, what all is allowed and what all is not. So I'm just selecting a random picture and I will click on upload torrent. So it is showing us that this is not a valid torrent file. It means there is some kind of server side checking is being done, blacklisting or whitelisting, which is ensuring that we don't upload anything. It should be a torrent file. So I guess in this step, we need to browse how to create a torrent file. So we will head over to Google and we will say like torrent create, and we will just type GitHub. I will tell you why we are typing GitHub. Basically, tools are available on GitHub, and we need a tool right now to create a torrent file. So we will definitely type GitHub. So it is our process. We can see that this is a tool which someone has created, Kimbat, and we can create torrent files via it. So we head over there, and here is the URL which we can access to create the torrent files. So we just click on it. Okay, so it's basically simple torrent application creator. We can just select a file. Let's try with the same image. We will try to create this image as a torrent file. So we click on open, and I don't think we need to fill anything else because everything is optional. So we click on create torrent, and it shows it is done. Yeah. So as you can see, we got the access to download the torrent file. So we click on save file, and this will go into the downloads directory. So we click over here, and we just need to find out this is a file. And now we will try to upload this one. So we click on upload again. We click on browse, and now we will go into the downloads folder and C7. And here's the torrent file we created just now. We click on open, and this time we try to upload it. So file has been uploaded, and we can see details like uploaded by test, what was our username, and we can see a lot of other options. But this won't help us to escalate our privileges. Basically, right now we are just testing out the application functionality. So we definitely needed a .torrent file, and we uploaded it. But still, we are not able to find something which is vulnerable. So the next thing we can do is like just enumerate, and we will just go to browse section and see if our torrent file is visible. Okay, so now even our torrent file in music category is being available to download, and we can also see if we have access to control panel. But control panel doesn't give us anything special except changing a password. So what all we can do? What we can try to do is this is the basic step. We need to play with it. We need to play with the application functionality to find something which we can exploit. So the next step is basically to click on over here and try to see what all is available over here. So as you can see, there is a very interesting option available over here, screenshots, and we can edit the torrent file. So once we click on it, we can see that we can update screenshot. What basically it means it like we can upload another like a small picture to that torrent file, thumbnail basically. And it is also showing that the allowed types are JPEG, GIF, PNG, and the maximum size is this. And please note that you are allowed to upload only one screenshot per torrent. So now we will try to like upload our reverse shell over here, I guess. So to download a reverse shell, this is a very famous reverse shell, and people even in like good certifications like OSCP still use it, and it's a valid thing which can be used. So the name is Pentest Monkey reverse shell for PHP, because we know that it is a PHP system. So we can see the first link, which is again on GitHub. And to download this, what we need to do is we just need to head over the PHP, which is the reverse shell, click on it. Then we need to go to the raw. Now we need to select the URL, copy. And what we can do is we can head over to LPTC. And I have it already over here, but I will download it again just to show you. First, I will remove the existing one, which is PHP reverse shell. Now I will say wget, and after wget is a utility which allows you to fetch resources from web server. So basically, we need this raw because we only need the source code. We only need the source code. We don't need the whole thing. If we type wget and supply this URL, it will download basically the whole web page, which we don't want to download. We just want to download the code. So we copy the URL after raw, and then we supply it to wget. And once we click enter, it will show like 100%, and we have it now. So now basically once we have a reverse shell, we need to configure it so that we get the connection back. So we can use a text editor like gedit. We can supply it. And once we click on enter, this will open up the file. So this is the whole reverse shell. And what is important for us over here is basically these two lines. We need to supply our IP address, and we need to supply on the port we will be listening. So basically, we will get a reverse shell only when we tell the web server where to send the reverse shell. So we need to supply our IP address over here and the port number. So to get to know our IP address, we need to open a new terminal, type ifconfig, and this is our IP address. So we copy it, we open it, and we supply our reverse shell IP address over here, and port number is fine. We can use the 1234 as well. We click on save, and now we can just try to upload this, I guess, and test out if it lets us upload it. So now we click on browse. We go into LPTC, and this was our reverse shell, which we just now configured. We click on it, but before submitting, we also need to start our listener. So a listener is basically a thing which will help you to catch the reverse shell back. So we can also use Metasploit over here to create a listener, but we will be doing this without Metasploit, and you will see it's much more easy. It's nothing complicated. We just need to type netcat. We just need to type these three options, which means verbose means like shows the output. P means for port. This port we want to listen on, and L is to tell the netcat that we are on a listening mode. So basically three options: listen, verbose, port. And we click enter, and now you can see it's showing listening on any like 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically netcat has started listening on this port for any connections. And we click on submit screenshot now, but it shows us invalid file. So basically there is again any filter being and server check is being implemented over here. So to bypass it, we now will use Burp Suite. So I can just close it off and start it again to show everyone. So we go over here where we will be able to upload our screenshots. This is an extension. I will share a link how to configure Burp Suite and install it after this session if everybody wants it. This is an extension which allows us to like listen on Burp Suite basically. And we click on this Burp Suite icon. Otherwise, you can find it from over here. We can type Burp Suite. It's already installed in Kali by default. So let's like just understand what was Burp Suite. So Burp Suite is basically allow us to see request and response, which I will show you in a minute. And we will be intercepting a post request because as you can see over here, the screenshot was being sent to the server. And while the screenshot was being sent to the server, we won't be able to see the details in the URL. So it is a post request. And Burp Suite is very much helpful to see the post requests because it allows us to edit all the post requests and see what is going and what is actually coming back. So file upload bypass. How we can upload them, like upload malicious reverse shells and bypass the restrictions. So basically, there are three common ways that a website uses to check and allow or deny list, basically, and check if it is malicious or not. First is a file extension. We can try to add another layer of extension, like we know like our malicious shell will be based on PHP. So we can try to add a .png and see if the server doesn't check it, because the server needs to check everything properly. It needs to check what all extensions are there. If the user is using another layer of extension, it also needs to like filter it out. But most of the servers doesn't do it actually. And then there is another thing, content type head, which I will show you in a minute. And then there is magic bytes. So what is magic bytes is basically our file signatures. For every file, there is a file signature. for a zip file, for a PNG file, Magic Bytes are used. I will just show you what is Magic Bytes quickly to get an understanding. But we will be using file extension, the most common way to bypass any file upload. But just for information, I will also show you what is Magic Bytes. So Magic Bytes, basically, if we go into our pictures folder, and we can see hex editor is a editor where we can see the hex numbers. And if we click on that file, our PNG file, so these are the Magic Bytes of a PNG file. So even if you Google what Magic Bytes for a PNG file, it will show you this all, the first 8 basically. And .png, if you have studied digital forensics, the subject will also teach how to manipulate Magic Bytes and a little bit in detail. But I won't be covering over here Magic Bytes as much, but I wanted to give you an introduction what is Magic Bytes actually is. So if you can see .png over here and you can see this Magic Bytes, what we can do is we can change this first 8 bytes to a zip file and try to upload it. If zip files are allowed, the server is only checking the Magic Bytes, then our file will be allowed to get uploaded. So it is basically, it's not a good habit to only check Magic Bytes. The good practice is to check for Magic Bytes, to also check for content type header, and to make sure like the malicious user is not able to bypass via any type of double type of adding layers and try to bypass the file upload. So we close this over here. We go back to our Netcat listener, is still listening, and we go over to the website. We click on edit this torrent. So this is basically via Burp Suite. We are receiving this error because Burp Suite had not started it yet. We'll click on next, start Burp Suite. So Burp Suite has been started. I will just give you a quick introduction of Burp Suite. So this is the dashboard. This is the proxy tab where we can tell the Burp Suite to intercept a request or to not. Right now, we will just pause it off and we click over here. We close this. We click on this edit torrent file. Now we click on browse. Now we will give our reverse shell again. We click on open. Now, before submitting, we will enable Burp Suite so that we can see what request it is being sent. So we click on submit screenshot and you can see the whole request is in front of us. To play with this request, Burp Suite has an amazing feature, which is send to repeater. And once we can send to repeater, we can see the request and response in front of us. So we can just play around. Like we can first send and see, okay, it is showing invalid file. So basically we need to play with the request to bypass the file upload because it's still showing invalid. Now, if we go down, we can see this content type, which is a header, which is being used. So what we can do is we can try to manipulate this. We can tell it like, we are not uploading a PHP. We are uploading an image / PNG file. And we can also use a file extension bypass, which I just told you, we can add another layer. So our file is PHP. So we will also add a PNG dot, another layer to it. So we can find the file name over here. And as you can see, it is .php. We can also add PNG. So most of the CTFs allow this trick to work and you don't need to go to Magic Bytes, but a few advanced one also requires you to change the Magic Bytes of the file. So over here, you can see that we just changed .png, we added another layer, and we also changed the content type to .png. If we click on send, so it is showing now that it has uploaded our PNG file and it has been successfully uploaded. So we go into the proxy tab. We do the same thing over there. We add .png. We add image / PNG over here and forward the request and close the intercept because our work is done. Basically, we know how to bypass now. So we close out and we head over to, okay, we can also see the request on the website we opened to upload the screenshot. We can close this off. We can go over here. But there's a problem right now. Once reverse shell is uploaded onto the server, we also need a way to execute it. So the thing is, Not we can upload files onto the web server. That's completely fine, but it's dangerous for them also because we can upload some heavy files as well and just use their web server for our own purposes. But the point is, we won't be able to do anything after uploading. We still need a way to access those files back because by uploading, we will only use the space on the server, but we won't be able to exploit any functionality. So the general HTTP, when you see a port like HTTP, you definitely need to brute force for directories. But what if there are many directories after it? We only brute force it for the first line. But what about the more fuzzing? So what we can do is we can go back to our brute forcer, and over here we only gave the base path, but we didn't know what was existing after the torrent. So we can tell the directory buster to brute force for files after torrent. So basically, these all files are where you can access more files are basically folders on the web server. We only access one folder, but after that folder, there are many other files which we don't know. So we can just click enter. And now if you can see, the URL is http 10.10.10.6/torrent. So it is searching for files after torrent directory. So we can see there's a directory called admin. We can just test it out to see if we can find anything. But no, we don't have access. You do not have permission to access this file. So we go back, we hunt for more. Okay, there's a lot coming in. The most important ones are config. Config is a good one. We can try to see what it has. Nothing is giving back. We can just view source code, but no. So the next one, as you can see, there are a lot of coming in. We need to filter it out yourself. We can also see a database file. So we go to the duplicate tab and let's see if there are any database available. So we can see one database is being available, which is .sql. But always when you will find a database like this, it means it is a copy of database. It is not the actual database. So if we click on it, we can see, okay, so it was a MySQL dump, and it's basically a database which admin would have created for itself as a backup. So we can search for admin over here to see if we can find anything. Okay, so this is an important line, dumping data for table users. As we can see, it has inserted admin, and it's this is basically a hash, and we can see the username and its hash value. So whenever you get to see something like this, it is known as a hash. You can just copy it down, go to a terminal. So Kali already has a tool which is hash ID. You can just apply the hash over here, and it will tell us which type of hash it is, because we don't know what type of hash it is, but we definitely know this is something which we won't understand, and it's not a password. So we can see it is a MD2. So a few hashes which are normally weak can be cracked online. So we head over to crack station. So this is a website to crack hash. We supply our hash over here, and we click on like we are not a robot. I need to play it around. Okay, so now it verified. Okay, so we were able to crack the admin password, but let's try to log in as admin now and see if we can, because we got the password over here and it told us like it is MD5, and we just supplied a hash. So we go back to the torrent directory. We are currently logged in as a user, so we probably logged out. And we click on login. We click on admin over here as a username, and we just got a password which was admin12. Okay, so it's not letting us log in. So it basically means that it was a backup and that was an old admin password. So this is basically a rabbit hole which we went into right now. And we need to identify right now, like we are stuck in a rabbit hole and this is not the path which will lead us to anything. So we definitely need to stop and go for like more things which we got from the directory busting tool. So we go down. We are not interested in any of these. README, these are just the general Apache files. But this one is interesting, upload, because we just uploaded a screenshot as a reverse shell. And now we know the directory where the our uploaded files reside. So we come over here, we click on duplicate tab. We open the upload path and okay, so it's not there. We try to see for upload file. Okay, so we need to check what all is there. So I guess we need to upload a file again because we just logged out. So we log in into test and test. And we try to upload once more and see. So we just see if our file still exists. Yeah, our file still exists. We try to upload our reverse shell again. Okay, so we go into browser. We click on c7.png. So it is showing like image file not found. So basically our file was not valid, I guess. So we click on edit disk torrent and we click on browse. We again supply our reverse shell and we again turn on our Burp Suite. Click on submit screenshot. We just change the ones we want. These are all comments which I will be deleting. So the request might be a little light on the server. So these are all comments still here. And we need to make sure our IP and port is correct. So our IP and port is correct. And we forward it off. Close the intercept. So file has been uploaded. Let's check if the upload file is there now. Okay, so we can see like our uploaded file is there. Now we just need to click on it. And our netcat is still listening for the port. Now I don't know which one is ours, so we'll just try to play around because the server is changing the names. Someone also is like playing with this box and they have uploaded their own reverse shell. So we just need to figure it out which one is ours. Probably not this one. Yeah, definitely I can try to filter out with the date, but I guess this is something wrong with the server because one is showing 2017 and the other ones are showing 2021. According to me, ours one should be this one, which we can try to click, but then it's showing that the image cannot be displayed because of errors. We can also try this one. I will try just one by one and see if anyone clicks it. Yeah, so R was this one, basically 13 March, and this one is ours. And we got something over here, like we are triple. So whenever you will get access by exploiting a web application vulnerability, which like we just exploited, we will be a user known as triple W data. So this is a by default user in Kali, which doesn't have much privileges on the server, but it exists so that when the server doesn't want to give you much more permission and you just are a user of the web application, so you get this as written. So it's nothing to worry about. You can also see who am I is a command to see who you are currently via triple W data. One thing, whenever you get a reverse shell, is to upgrade it. To upgrade it, it's very easy. We just go to Google and type Python TTY. It's very common. Spawning a TTY reverse shell basically means that we will just make it a little bit interactive. So we can just copy this one and we can just paste it over here. That's it, nothing else. It will now make we won't be able to see anything back for sure, but it has made our shell a little bit more stable. So this is a very nice stuff which we need to do every time. So now we move on. So now we'll move off to the privilege escalation part. So I will show you the both ways, how to enumerate manually and how we could do it with automation. And we first move on to the manual phase. So whenever we get a reverse shell, the first step is to type uname A. This is to see what is the kernel version. So we are hunting for OS enumeration, basically. We are looking for system enumeration and exploitation, which is kernel. So what kernel version and distro are we working with? So we can see that, okay, Linux, we are working with Linux, and don't ignore this popcorn because it's just the person while he was installing Linux has named it popcorn. So it is appearing over here, but we are interested in Linux and the version. So 2.6.31 is the version. And we can also type this command to see what operating system we are running on. So lsb release, and basically the command is only this, and this we always do to redirect the errors. So like when we type this, the errors won't be shown into our screen. Okay, we just need to give /a as well. Okay, so now we can see, okay, it is Ubuntu, and this is the important part, that the release is 9.10. So now we know the quiet, like we know what is the kernel and what is the Ubuntu version. But now we need to hunt for exploits. Like, are these vulnerable? Like the server admin might have not updated its like Linux server, or might have not updated its operating system. So we'll search for it. And to search for it, there are two ways. Basically, everyone would have heard about exploit DB, I guess. So exploit DB is basically a database of exploits. We can find a lot of exploits over here for all the vulnerable things. So we can just search it over here. Or there is another version to search directly from the terminal, which is known as search exploit. So search exploit is nothing much, but it is just a command line search tool for exploit DB. So instead of heading over to the website, this is a better thing to do. We just type search exploit and the term. So what will be the term over here? The term will probably be this Ubuntu 9.10, or it can be the kernel version, or it can be both. So let's first try out the kernel version. We will say search exploit. We will say Linux kernel, or we can just type 2.6.31 and hit enter. So it gave back a lot of output, and we are not interested in everything. So we need to filter it out, because we are only interested in quite the privilege escalation ones. So what we can do is we can tap on. This is the pipe operator, which lets you supply another command, which the already one. So we will supply grep. Grep is basically to filter out in this whole output, to filter out some text. So we are interested in privilege escalation. So we hit enter now. So, okay, we just filtered out all the exploits which had privilege escalation into them. But this is still a lot to figure it out. And sometimes not every exploit will work on every system because there is still a little more we can go in depth. But to make it easy, I just wanted to show you how to we can figure it out our exploits for this system. And what we can do over here is we know the basics, how to search for the exploit, how to use search exploit and grep for our common exploits, but we will just close it off and we will go the automated way this time. So we can go into temp directory. Why we are going into temp directory is basically as a triple W, we are basically right now triple W data. And this command, basically this directory allows us to make the files creation and execution over here, because this is just a temporary directory. So imagine there is a web server and there is an admin over there, and he just allowed a intern to like play around with the web server. So he will probably give him triple W data. So he won't be able to do much with the privileges, but he might be able to do this normal task. So we go into this directory. Now we will transfer out files over here. But before that, I want to introduce how to basically, whenever we see that the kernel is vulnerable, what all steps we need to take. We first need to understand exploit, which we will do in a minute. We need to transfer it, and then we need to compile it. Then we need to execute. We will do all these steps now. And those people who are preparing for OSCP, I have a trick for you. So the trick is, when we are exploiting kernel vulnerability, it is very much enforced that you compile the exploit on the target system. So the target system over here is this popcorn. So according to everyone, if you compile the exploit on your system and send it, it won't execute most of the time. But if you compile the exploit on the target system, it is more effective. But to exploit it, we need a compiler. Basically, when we transfer exploit, we need to compile it. Like GCC is a C compiler, which lets us compile .c exploits. The syntax is very basic: GCC -0 exploit C. So, and this is one of the commands which we can use. So what this command is, this is just a trick to know if these compilers are available on the target machine. I hope you are getting what I'm trying to say. These are the commands which we will use. So if we use it on my system first, so my system has everything available. Like you can compile a Python exploit, you can compile a .c exploit, Ruby exploit, everything you can compile over here. But let's head to like the popcorn machine. We type the same command over here and we see, okay, it is also giving us, but this is like, I would say, an easy box. That's why you are able to see. But in OSCP, what you can do, you can take this command and type it out. After typing out this command, if you can see a GCC available, it means most probably 90% you have to deal with the exploit of .c, because they have themselves given you the permission to compile exploit. Otherwise, it won't be over there. It can be, but it is a hit and miss. But most probably this tricks works in OSCP. So the people who are preparing for OSCP can, like, I will share this command in the comment section. And this command helps us to know if the compiler is available or not. So we know that GCC compiler is available, and we also know that the kernel is vulnerable. So it probably means 90% by now that we need to exploit a kernel vulnerability. There is a lot of enumeration we can do once we get a triple W data. So to ease the process, we can use automation. So there is a script known as linpiece, which is a Linux local privilege escalation awesome script. I can also share the GitHub link with you all. And we will just run it right now and see the output. So we head over to our temp directory. We see what are the, so we copy our own linpiece over here. I already showed you how to copy the files from GitHub via wget. So I already did it to save us time. And here you can see my linpiece is over here. So I will just create a server. So to copy files from our system to the target, we can use a Python server. The command is very simple. We tell python.m to start a HTTP server. But remember that you will only be able to fetch files like out of these four. because we are starting a server at this directory. We won't be able to fetch files from outside any directory. So we are supplying the port. We are trying to listening on http.server, and we click enter. Now we need to fetch files. So we need to give our IP address, which was 10.10.14.8. The port was 7000, and we want LinPs as of now. So someone already, like you can see, copied LinPs before me because they might be also doing this box. After copying, we need to make it executable. So chmod +x and linps .sh. Now it is executable, and to execute it, we do this. So now linps will run, and I will just introduce a little bit more linps. So whenever you use linps, it will show you all the enumeration you can do manually, or you can use linps to show you everything. The main thing we are looking at linps is the red and yellow part. So yellow part is the most highest, and red is also pretty high. So if we get red, it's better to stop and exploit the vulnerability because linps has done it for you. So if we go up, we can see in the starting only, it is showing that Linux version might be vulnerable, and there is sudo version also vulnerable. So this is the legend. Red, you must take a look, and red and yellow means like 95% this is the vulnerability. And this script is allowed in OSCP, and it really helps us to save time because OSCP is a exam where like the time is a little less and you need to run, and people generally use this type of scripts to save time and get all the information instead of typing each command manually. So now we go over, and we know like we will be hunting for our kernel access. So we just type, just wait a second. We again got the shell. We go into temp. So now to tell you, like this is a Linux exploit suggester. Once we know, we need to exploit the kernel, but as I showed you, when we were doing search exploit, we were getting so much output and we were not able to decide which one we actually need to use it. We can try a little one or two, but it might not work, and it works. So we can use a tool which can effectively enumerate for us and show us which exploit to actually use. So this is the link for this tool I am giving you. This tool is again allowed in OSCP, and this allows us to like tell which exploit you have to actually use, because there are a lot of exploits and we sometimes get confused, and again like we are short on time. So it's definitely better to stick with this, but we definitely know how to do it manually. We can use uname a to find the kernel version, and we can use lsb release /a to figure out the OS version, as you can see. So we go over here, suggest exploit based on the traits of the machine. So we can see someone has already copied it for us, so it will save us time, and I won't copy it again. And I just launch it. So as you can see, it is showing us that the kernel version is 2.6.31, which we also found it same. And it is showing that Ubuntu is 9.10, which is the same thing. But the possible exploits, this is the thing which we are interested in. So we can see it is showing us a number of exploits. With the first one, it shows is full Nelson. Now, if you deal with a lot of machines, you will definitely know that full Nelson was an exploit in 2010, which was very much effective, and it is very popular still now. And you still find these exploits available in machine in these days. So you can just go over this URL because it shows you what is the download URL, or we can just copy it out. We just type it out. So now we come back to the steps. The first step is configure if needed. First, we need to understand and configure. So we will just understand what the exploit is. So it is telling us that this exploit leverages 3 vulnerabilities to get root, all of which were discovered by Nelson. And that's why the name is full Nelson basically. And it's a local privilege escalation exploit. And the usage is, now I told you, like GCC might, if GCC is available, it means we have the permission to compile this exploit and output the name of the executable and just execute it. Now you can read a lot more, but due to the time restriction, I will be sticking out to the basics. We will copy it. We will go to our terminal. We will head over to here and we can see like I have already copied. Nothing you have to do. You just need to type wget and space and supply the URL. I have already available over here, full Nelson. So we will go back over here. We will say wget. We'll find our IP. So we saw that we copied full Nelson and somebody also did this before us. So full Nelson is already available. And so configure, we didn't need to configure anything. Like when we copied that PHP pentester monkey reverse shell, we needed to configure it, but this time we don't. And we transferred it right now. And we need to compile it. Compile syntax for GCC exploits is this. It's also written over the exploit. We can use the same one. This is how we compile it. But to compile, make sure like GCC is available. And I just showed you the command to get to know if GCC is available on the machine or not. We can head over. We can type to compile the exploit. And it has compiled, I guess. So we see full Nelson is over here. We just need to execute it. And we got root. So basically we did it. Who am I? We are root. So in hack the box, if you go to the root directory, there will be a flag. You can say cat root.txt. And we found the hash. We just need to copy the hash and go over here and own root. For user, we can check the home directory now. We can check what all users are there. There is home directory has the list of users. Okay, there's one user, George. We can ls and we got to know even the user txt. So we did it. The machine has now been rooted and we got root as well. And that's it. We first configure, we transfer, we compile, and then we execute. It's all, but you need to make sure that the compiler is available. Otherwise, you won't be able to compile. And it's not a good practice to compile it on your machine and send it over. You need to compile it on the target machine. So this is the end most probably. And thank you all for coming today. If there are any questions, I'm ready to answer them. Yes, I have recorded the session and it will be made available on YouTube as well. And if you have any questions, you can just put it on the LPT group as well. I will answer it over there. Thank you everyone for joining today. And now I will be closing out the session. Thank you.